Welcome back. Been a while, huh?
It's been a minute.
Been a minute.
It has.
So, kind of life update. I had to move about 3 hours southwest.
Yeah.
Family problems. They're getting better. But I'm back in town for the weekend, and we've had these notes for a minute.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute.
I said, hey, while I'm in town, let's get this done. And big announcement, we're going to try to go virtual. We got a couple of different ideas for virtual that we're working on.
Indeed.
We're going to get that ironed out. And possibly a YouTube channel. And you could see our lovely faces. Finally. I was kind of wondering when you were going to take that sock off of that thing. I thought you were just kind of like using it as an extra...
an extra pop filter?
An extra pop filter, you know? So for those, because you guys can't see, Tori left the...
I left the sock on the mic.
Yeah, so...
It's fun.
It's hilarious.
It's fun.
We're definitely leaving that in, too.
Well, we have no choice now.
So...
It'll be those kind of shenanigans that we're talking about going virtual.
Yeah.
We're also talking about going video.
Right.
So moments like that,
You'll be able to see it. And you'll be like, okay, that's funny.
Yeah, for sure. It is what it is.
So, yeah, possible video. Well, probable video.
Probable video.
And then there's a couple of different ideas we're tossing around for recording.
So this is going to be the last time probably for
a few months.
At least a few months.
At least a few months.
That Steve and I are actively recording in the same room.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we've got some hammering to do.
We do. And we're changing things up a bit again, which at this point, really, people haven't gotten used to anything. So
Yeah, for sure. So it kind of works.
It kind of works. Because, okay, so like we said before, when we started this out, you know, we were covering Chuck Berry. Then we covered Rosetta Tharpe. Then we covered T-Bone Walker, Rosetta Tharpe, then Chuck Berry. And then we were like, okay, well, now we're going to go to decades.
Mm.
Like we're building towards something here. And when you're building something, you have to swap your building materials at a certain point to start building something different. So that's all we're doing here is, you know, we've got the foundation built. That was T-Bone Walker, Rosetta Tharpe, and Chuck Berry. That was our foundation. Then we started on the decades. Now, we're not veering away from the decades, but we're going to focus on a certain decade now. We're going to focus on the 60s, but we're focusing on a certain part of the 60s. So think of it as we're focusing on a certain part of a song or a certain part of a building. You know, we're focusing
song of
on
rock and roll, you know.
Yes, we're focusing on a certain
We'd say
part
we've
of
covered
it.
the intro to the song.
We've covered the intro.
Now we're pretty much working towards like the first verse.
Right. So the 60s. What kicked off the 60s? The British were coming.
The British were coming.
The British invaded us. Hundreds of years later. Again.
Yeah. Boston Tea Party.
But this time they were welcome and worshipped. We're talking about the British invasion, which is where the Beatles, the Stones, and any other British band you can think of.
Right. The Who, I think, were in there.
The Who, yes, absolutely. So, Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Late 60s.
Yes. So, for a few episodes, we're going to just focus on British bands in the 60s.
For sure.
So, we're kind of kicking off our British Invasion series.
Yeah. I'll take that. I like that.
Yeah. I've had that cooking.
In the bun with the easy bake.
Right. Takes a while with a 60-watt bulb. So, again, we're focusing on bands like the Beatles, the Stones, the Who, the Sabbath.
The Sabbath.
The Sabbath.
Keep holy the day.
Yes. And their success during the early and late 60s not only reshaped the music landscape, but also inspired countless American artists. Because, like...
Well, how many of you have listened to the Beatles?
Right. How many of you listen to the Beatles? How many of you have listened to Ozzy Osbourne? How many of you listen to Black Sabbath? You know, like, you can't tell some of these artists are British.
Necessarily.
It depends on the band.
For
the
sure.
Beatles, yes. The Beatles, absolutely.
They kind of got that Liverpool thing going on.
But what I'm saying here is, how many of you listen to these bands and you're inspired by these bands and they turn out to be, you know, they're a British band, but you're American. Well, it doesn't matter where you get your inspiration from.
For sure. I mean, music is universal.
So, Tori's band, Sidereal Day, has a new song out.
We do.
And I played it for my father, and he said it sounds like a mix between Ozzy Osbourne and Wasp. So,
you know, I said, when you first told me that, I was not expecting to hear that combination, but I'll take it. I will definitely take it. And for anybody who's listening that's interested, I'll throw links to that song in the
absolutely
in the description for this.
I don't think Tori planned on plugging this, but I'm going to plug it for him.
I didn't plan on plugging it, but I'll take it.
I'll plug it for you.
I appreciate it.
Just like we're going to have the band on High Life.
Yeah, your
here
other
soon.
podcast, right?
My other podcast. I finally got access to it again, and I can post on there again.
Woo!
Yeah, so there's a new episode of that out there, and then I'm working on a couple of interviews. And I told Tori, I said, hey, you guys finally have a song released. Let's interview you guys. Let's promote you.
Yeah.
So
be looking for that.
Be looking for that too. So this episode's going to be kind of all over the place because we're not.
It is. This is a different one.
Because we're kicking something off.
Yeah, we're not talking about any specific band for this episode.
We're not focusing on any bands currently. The history of British rock though is interesting, and it is American inspired.
It is.
So when you say, "Oh, I'm inspired by British rock," I mean, really, you're just inspired by American rock,
right?
In a roundabout way.
Yeah, yeah.
So, initial attempts to emulate American rock and roll took place in Britain in the mid-1950s. But the terms rock music and rock usually refer to the music derived from the blues rock and other genres that emerged during the 1960s. The term is often used in combination with other terms to describe a variety of hybrids or subgenres, and is often contrasted with pop music, with which it shares many structures and instrumentation. So, like, a lot of early rock gets played as pop music now.
Yeah.
So, but pop literally is just popular.
Yeah.
So, when you say, oh, that song is poppy, it's catchy. It's
overproduced.
No.
It's catchy. It's got
catchy,
a vibe. It's
right.
You're going to be able to remember it whether you want to remember
You're
it
going to
or
sing
not.
along.
Yeah.
And that's literally all pop music is. So, at the time, that's what British rock was trying to emulate, was American rock artists like Elvis, like Little Richard.
Right, like B.B. King.
Like B.B. King.
In blues, American
right.
early rock and American blues.
Right. So they were inspired by this. Rock music has tended to be more orientated towards the albums market, putting an emphasis on innovation virtuosity, performance, and songwriting by the performers.
For sure. And like, that's when I think another thing when people think of pop music, which is kind of why I used the word overproduced, even though I was being a little sarcastic. I was only being a little sarcastic. Like there's less emphasis on virtuosity in quote unquote pop. It's focused on, well, to be honest, it's focused on making money.
Right.
You know, it's not focused necessarily on showcasing the performer as it is using the market and doing something catchy.
Right. I mean,
which is in itself, writing something catchy in itself is great songwriting.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So we talked about this before. When I said that Snoop Dogg should come out with a country album.
Right.
But she still hasn't, and I'm disappointed.
We might be waiting a minute.
We might. But there for a minute, there was a popular thing for pop and rap and R&B artists to give their songs a country twang or have a country artist come on the song.
Mm-hmm.
Like Eminem just taking one of Jelly Roll's song and then using the chorus. Like Eminem is actually known for taking other songs, using the chorus and then rewriting the verses.
Right.
And then you've got artists like Post Malone that released an entire country album and then sounds freaking amazing.
Right.
Like he's not a rapper making a country album. He actually sang country.
Yeah.
And I thought it was phenomenal. So you can come at me for that if you want. I don't care.
I'll give you his address.
Then you've got artists like MGK who
went punk.
Went punk, but then also went country.
Yeah, for sure.
So he did a cover of a the Chicks song.
Right.
Formerly known as the Dixie Chicks. It's called Here's Your Trouble. So he did a cover of that, which I thought sounded great. And he has this knack for covering something that is actually an octave or two higher than what he can sing, and he takes his voice to the edge of what he can do without cracking.
Yeah.
And the first time I hear it, I'm nervous for him because I'm like, if he cracks a single time, this will ruin him. But then he never cracks, and I'm like, nice job.
For sure. Keep it steady, man.
So, you know, like I was saying, he did a cover of that song, and then he had another song. I can't think of the name of it. Something My Son or Son.
I'm not really sure. I haven't been up on MGK's.
But that's also got a country kind of twang to it. And MGK is such a versatile artist that literally, like, you just give him a genre and he'll do something for it.
For sure.
Recently he was on Motown Christmas.
Yeah.
And sang, I think it was Rudolph?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't get a chance to watch it, but I was just like, he's such a versatile artist.
For sure. There's a lot of talent there that he hasn't really been, I don't think, given credit for by most people, because somebody's either pissed off that he went away from rap, or they're pissed off that he went away from punk, or they're pissed off that he's.
Because I had a conversation with
pissed off that he fucking exists, but you know, it is what it is.
I had a conversation with some coworkers. They're diehard Eminem fans, and him and Eminem had that feud, and everyone who was on Eminem's side is like, "Oh, he killed MGK," and I'm like, "No, MGK walked away." He said, "You know what? This has been great for publicity. I appreciate it.
That's what I needed.
That's what I needed.
Thanks, bye."
Right. And then he was like, "You know what? Let's go punk rock." And I mean, his punk rock songs are just fucking awesome. I love them.
For sure. It's got a much better vibe than I expected when I first started listening to anything that he was doing outside of rap.
He did attempt some acting. Wasn't. I'll say
sometimes
that's
musician
not his
actors
strong suit.
Are good. Sometimes they should just avoid it.
Yeah. So I mean, he has a stoner movie called Good Morning. It's a stoner movie.
Check it out if you wanna.
Right. It's not.
It's got its moments.
Yeah. It's funny. It's stoner funny. But
Cheech and Chong, but not.
Right.
You can't stand up to
modern
Cheech
day.
and Chong. Yeah.
But yeah. So there's that. And then he was like, "Oh, I've been doing punk rock." And then he decides to get ballsy and try to make fun of Slipknot. That's not a great choice, because Slipknot's not just a band. They have a following. They have a very old
they have
following.
Their own festival.
Right.
Like,
so
yeah.
When you come for Slipknot and then Corey Taylor destroys you, and literally wants to kick your ass, you just back down. Which he did.
Right.
He did. He was, and then he's giving his hand at country. But anyways, back to what I was saying. Pop music is just what's popular at the time.
Correct. Yes. Wow, that was a bit of a segue, wasn't it?
That was.
That's what I love about this show.
We have notes, I promise. We do
have notes. Yeah, it is a thing.
You know what? We'll start a Patreon and release our notes, and you'll go, that's like a page and a half.
Right, for like
and they talk for fucking ever.
Like, I don't see any of this in the manuscript.
It's not a script, it's notes.
Yeah, for sure. Unscripted, but heavily guided.
There's a guardian angel shooting themselves, like
somewhere, yeah.
Bartender, give me another shot. This is heaven. There's no alcohol. I need it.
You telling me this is a dry county?
All right. So, anyways, British rhythm and blues, or R&B, was a musical movement that developed in the United Kingdom between the late 1950s and early 1960s and reached a peak in the mid-60s. It overlapped, but was distinct from the broader British beat and more purist British blues scene, attempting to emulate the music of American blues and rock and roll pioneers such as Muddy Waters, Chuck Berry, and countless others. It often placed greater emphasis on guitars and was often played with greater energy.
So I think you can feel that too, right? Like you listen to blues, early blues, and it's blues. You listen to funk and it's got an energy to it. But rock is the longest living, like, set of quote unquote genres.
Yeah.
And I think that lends very closely to the energy that it brings. Like, even a lot of more, well, I'm not going to say today's country, because today's country would probably be considered pop more than anything. But like, mid 80s through like the mid 2000s, country was basically rock. Like, and it's an energy.
Was. They were hailed as rock stars.
Oh, absolutely.
I remember when I was a kid, my parents were huge into country music. And country music at the time was great. Like, these artists were awesome people. They did actual publicity tours and stuff. I distinctly remember multiple times as a kid, a country artist would come to town. Okay? They'd come to St. Louis. And the radio station's obviously giving away tickets, talking up the concert.
Mm-hmm.
they'll probably go on and make a phone call or appear in studio.
Right.
But not only that, but they would appear in the local mall.
Oh, yeah.
I went multiple times. I've met Billy Gilman in person. I've met Brian White. Who's the Australian guy?
The Australian guy?
The Australian guy. Keith Urban. I've met him in person.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, for sure.
Where all these pictures are, I don't know. If I can locate them, I'll put them up on the High Life Facebook page.
For sure.
So, if I can locate them, I don't know if they still exist. But yeah, I remember like these people were awesome, but they were super friendly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they weren't like today's country artists that think they have to be badasses or assholes and they can only party with their own kind or
right.
Or they think they need to throw a chair off of a balcony in downtown Nashville.
Because fuck it and fuck you.
Morgan Wallen.
Calling you out.
Come
Subpoena
for me, bro.
me.
Come for me. So anyways.
I can't wait to go video. It's going to be great.
Oh, man. But anywho. So you got these bands in Great Britain that are like, yo, have you heard Chuck Berry? Have you heard this band? And they're like inspired by these bands and they make their own sound. And then you've got the purists of Great Britain rhythm and blues going, no, that's too much. That's too wild. We like nice. We like calm. And they're like, fuck you.
Truth. Yeah.
And hey, more power to you.
Absolutely.
More power to you. Keep rocking. Don't let the man hold you down.
No. Especially if you're in 1960s Britain.
Right.
Well, no, I mean, that's another thing that like heavily formed the rock and roll scene in Britain in the 60s is that their society was so heavily, what's the word, class, like separated by class.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of early British rock and roll was the youth of Britain, of the lower class Britain, lashing out at upper class society, at the royalty, at the monarchy, the pompous, the reason that we had the Boston Tea Party people. Like,
well, and then like, if you think rock star, you think rich and famous, and I mean, John Lennon lived a pretty modest life.
Yeah.
He didn't go buy a huge mansion. He didn't have cars, plural, or like, he lived with his wife and his kid,
Yeah.
And then they went and played gigs. So, like, not only are these people like, they're not gods. Okay?
No,
I mean,
no, God, no.
We put them on a pedestal. Oh, that's a rock god.
Right.
But when we say someone's a rock god, we just mean that like they've inspired so many people that their music, their style, it will live on forever.
For sure.
Not the person themselves.
Right.
Just what they've created.
Right. Their contributions
will live in infamy.
Sometimes.
I mean, we've only got 2 Beatles out of the 4 left.
Right.
And yet, if you say, hey, have you heard what Paul McCartney's done? Have you heard?
You mean Paul McCartney had a band before Wings? Band on the run.
So, you mentioned Paul McCartney, you mentioned John Lennon, you mentioned Ringo Starr, or I don't know.
George Harrison.
George Harrison. I can never remember his name, which is terrible because I have 2 nephews that are both George and Harrison.
Oh.
So it's terrible. I can remember that.
Oh,
Anyways.
Yeah, screw your nephews. No, I'm kidding to any of his nephews that happen to be listening. I'm sure you're wonderful children.
But, yeah, you hear any of those names, or you hear the name The Beatles.
Yeah.
You know who they are.
Right. You almost immediately associate it with a sound.
A sound, or even a single song. And I gotta say, like, I hated this when I was in high school. I wore a t-shirt that was Rolling Stones. And these kids came up to me and they said, well, name 3 songs by the Stones. And I was like, well, I only know like 2. And they're like, then you're not a true fan. You can't wear that t-shirt. Why does it matter? Why does it matter?
I agree. Why does it? That is so. I mean, that's so high school. Like, I was wearing a Black Sabbath shirt one day in high school, and this kid comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, name 10 songs or whatever," So I start listing albums, and then I start listing songs off of the albums in order, and it's like do you know 10 songs from Black Sabbath? Like, are you trying to throw me off some kind of a scent when you know nothing about the band that I'm sporting right now?
Right.
Like
I wear a Smile Empty Soul t-shirt.
Sure.
A lot. I absolutely know 10 songs. Half of my Spotify library is Smile Empty Soul or Sean Danielson. Who's the lead singer.
Need to expand your library.
Okay, maybe not half. But there's a lot. Like, I have literally gone through every album that he's ever posted on Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
I don't save every single song. I don't like every single song.
Sure, yeah.
But I've saved a lot of stuff. And when he announces new stuff, I'll give it a listen. If I like it, I save it.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to go up to somebody else at a Smile Empty Soul show and be like, do you know anything about this band?
Right. Because,
I went to go see, it was Head PE was the headliner.
Right.
But Smile was an opener. I was there to see Smile.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anytime they come to St. Louis, I want to see them. And because he puts on a good show, and I know the music. I want to see him live. I want to support him. So, but I'm not going to walk up to somebody at the show and go, you're wearing a Smile shirt? Do you even know who the original members of the band are? Do you even know who their original record company was? Like, I'm not going to start quizzing people, okay? Like, that's not cool, people. Don't gatekeep.
I like how your gatekeeper's inquisitive accent is like surfer.
Yeah.
Like late 90s, early 2000s surf. Bro, do you even know?
Do you even know?
Nah.
But yeah, don't gatekeep people. That's rude and it's obnoxious. Like, nobody cares.
And I mean, I've seen people completely turned off from a band because of the way that the band's community of fans.
I originally was turned off from ICP because of the way some people
juggalos,
acted.
I guess.
Yeah. I will never claim myself as a juggalo.
Sure.
But I do have a few of their songs. I've listened to a lot of their songs.
Sure.
You can turn on quite a few of their songs and I could probably sing along to it.
For sure.
But I'm not going to paint my face. I'm not going to go to the gathering because I'm not that kind of fan.
Right.
If you are,
power
awesome.
to you, man.
Power to you. I've seen videos of the gathering. It looks like an awesome party.
It does.
But it's not my scene.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know what my scene is, but that's not it.
that ain't it.
But I have friends that I've interviewed on High Life. Boots the Clown. He is in, that group.
Right.
And he was the first person to not be like, do you even know?
That's kind of crazy to think about too, though, because like from what I understand, that community is very open and
it's. I think it was just my hometown. They're just
well,
they're
fuck
they're
yeah,
all
all right,
assholes.
fair enough.
Because they would walk around town with their face paint and just be like, "Fuck with us. It's not illegal." Oh, okay. Nobody cares about you fading your face up.
Right.
You look like you're gonna go rob a bank, but you know.
Some of those people, maybe.
Yeah. Have fun.
Right.
Party responsibly.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But so, back to what we're trying to talk about here. British audiences were beginning to encounter American rock and roll initially through films including Blackboard Jungle,
which we talked about. Well, I mentioned.
Rock Around the Clock.
I also mentioned.
I think we played a clip of that too, didn't we?
Yeah, we played a little bit of that song.
Yeah.
Check out the movie, though.
Both films contain Bill Haley and his Comets' hit Rock Around the Clock.
Rock Around the Clock.
Which first entered the British charts in early 1955. So, you can chart in the United States, but that doesn't mean you chart somewhere else.
Well, see, and that's the thing, too. This chart actually, this song, Rock Around the Clock, charted in the UK. I think it's 4 months before it charted in the United States.
And that's awesome, because there's been multiple bands that do better across the ocean than they do in their own countries.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that that's still a trend in modern music. It's
absolutely
still a trend.
I was listening to an interview with the band The Struts.
Mm-hmm.
They're a British rock band.
Mm-hmm.
And over in Great Britain, they weren't
really much of anything.
And so they were like, hey, let's try the United States.
Yeah.
And they're all over the radio. And they're like, they were flabbergasted at like how big they were after just a short period of time.
Yeah.
Because their sound was just
so different.
So, don't dismiss something because it's different.
Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Don't ever dismiss something because it's different. In fact, if you're listening to something that sounds completely different from anything else you've ever heard, listen to it all the way through. Give the whole thing a good listen before you decide whether you like it or not.
Right.
Because, I mean, innovation doesn't come from doing the same thing over and over.
No.
Nothing evolves that way.
So, High Life, my other show, charted in the top 20 of podcasts, comedy interviews, and interviews in the country of Jordan.
In Jordan?
Because of one interview that I did. One person that I interviewed shared it with his whole family, who then shared it with everybody they knew, because they were like, oh, did you hear that my nephew, my grandson, my great nephew, third removed of, what? The whole family would like spread the word.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard this guy's interview? He's big on TikTok. He did an interview on this podcast. Check out this podcast. I get an email. I wake up to this email one day. It says, oh, you charted in the top 20 in Jordan on Apple Podcast.
Sweet. What?
Why?
What?
What happened? Like, and then I see what episode it is, and I'm like, oh, that's freaking awesome. I don't care that it was another country. There's still a ton of people that it takes it still takes a lot of listens and downloads to hit that.
For sure.
So when someone says, "Yeah, but that wasn't here," I don't care.
It doesn't matter.
I don't care.
Yeah.
It was still that many listens, that many downloads.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
it's bragging rights, no matter what.
And to me, to chart in a country that is not known for speaking English,
yeah,
it is a bigger brag than I charted in the United States where everybody speaks English.
Right.
Half the country didn't know what I was saying, but they enjoyed the interview.
Yeah. Beat that.
Right. So, anyway. British rock was inspired by acts such as Elvis Presley, Little Richard, Buddy Holly, Bill Haley and his Comets, those 1950s bands that we've been talking about.
Right.
Then directly inspired British rock and roll.
Yeah.
So when we started this journey, I thought it would take forever. I was like, we're going to be on this topic of rock and roll for like 3 freaking years to connect Chuck Berry to Slipknot. We're going to be on this topic forever. This has gone by so quick. Like, things have connected so fast and so directly that it's blowing my mind. I just blew my mind.
Just blew
to quote
my
Will
own
Smith,
head.
To quote, not Will Smith, Will Ferrell.
Right.
To quote Will Ferrell, I just blew my mind. But yeah, it's just, these bands have such wildly different styles, yet rose to fame just months apart from each other. Because if you think about it, yes, the Beatles rose to fame in the 60s,
mm-hmm.
but they didn't start in the 60s. They had to have started at least in the 50s. To be, for a movie to hit the box office in 2025, it was probably filmed in 2023.
Right, at least parts of it.
So, and written, maybe a year or more before that.
Right.
So you can't be like, oh yeah, but that's like a 60s band. No, that is a forever band.
For sure,
that started years before and will last for years after.
Right. Much like Led Zeppelin.
Yes.
Unless, of course, you're Greta Van Fleet. But you're not. So we're
Unless
talking...
you are.
Unless you are. In which case, recant your interview. Just saying. Throwing that out there.
But the music industry has loyal fans. And loyal fans is what drives the industry. So when your music taste changes over time, because when I was younger, I didn't want to listen to Ozzy. I didn't want to listen to a lot of these 80s, 70s, 60s bands. I wanted to listen to what was today's music. I wanted Blink-182. I wanted My Chemical Romance. I wanted pop, punk, emo, grunge,
You didn't want dad rock.
I didn't want dad rock. And now that I'm a dad...
It's all you listen to.
It's all I listen to. I will say this. I found a playlist on Spotify, and it's called Divorced Dad Rock.
Uh-huh.
The saddest part, so when you save songs to your library or even download them,
right,
it puts a check mark next to that song, even if you find it on another playlist.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that 90-something%, over 95%,
was already in
my library.
You might as well have made the playlist yourself.
I might as well. But no, like, I have a greater respect for music. And I've been not necessarily studying music, but focusing more on how music is made more recently. I send Tori videos all the time of like different tips and tricks that bands do.
And also random little, current tidbits in the news of the music industry.
Yeah.
Some of that's kind of interesting.
It is. It's very interesting. And especially when they talk about a band that we've covered, I'm like, oh man, that would have been a cool story. But then if they talk about a band that we haven't covered quite yet, I'm like, we gotta mention that.
For sure. And I think a part of this going to a virtual / video kind of format, we might be able to start including things like that.
Right.
Short form content.
Yes.
Look out for the next WYDK TikTok.
Yes. We have a TikTok channel. It is run by me. Yeah. You
check it out.
Check it out. I am going to start grabbing clips from our interviews, posting them on TikTok. So that'll be awesome.
For sure. It'll be fun.
It'll be fun.
It'll be since we've been releasing, until recently,
yes,
we've been releasing once a month, which granted isn't super frequent, but we have lives. It is what it is. We're both working full-time jobs and we both have quite a bit going on.
Right.
So
I mean,
Tori's totally forgot where I was going with that.
Tori's got like 100 different side projects.
Always. Always.
But yeah, as Tori was trying to say, up until recently, we were posting quite regularly, once a month.
Oh, that was my point. So this short form will be good in between content.
Yeah.
Between our releases.
Absolutely.
So hopefully we'll be a little more active on things.
If we start getting enough people, or enough people start saying like, hey, we would love to see your notes, that would be entertaining. I will make a Patreon.
If there's enough call.
Notes. If there's enough call, I'm not going to charge very much.
No, of course not.
But, if you guys really want to see the notes compared to the episode, I will absolutely post that.
Absolutely. It'd be fun. I think it'd be fun for everyone involved. Both of us and all of you. Just to see how bad we really screw things up sometimes.
But, yeah, guys, I told you in my TikTok video, you bet your butt that we're going to keep doing this show.
Absolutely.
This show, it was a project in my head. I wanted to do it so badly. I was so happy when Tori was like, hey, that sounds like an awesome idea.
For sure.
Can I co-host it? And absolutely. Like somebody who knows something about music. Absolutely. And then he's like, hey, I have recording equipment and like I know how to edit. And I'm like, man, you're already hired, but that's even better. I've said it on High Life. We can
do this all in-house, man.
I've said it before on High Life. My biggest pet peeve is editing my own voice. So
I get it. I get it.
But stay tuned, guys.
We got cool stuff coming.
We got cool stuff coming.
We do. We got cool stuff coming.
We're expanding.
We are expanding, and we might not, for the longest time, we were releasing the first Friday of every month, and we're going to try and get back to that.
Now, coming up in March, we do have a special release coming.
Indeed.
I forgot the date on it, but I will post that on the socials. So if you don't follow the socials, you need to.
Indeed.
I'm not talking about personal socials. You need to follow podcast socials.
For sure. They're out there.
But yeah, in March, we got invited to a nonprofit charity podcast thing. Okay? So a lot of podcasts are all going to release on the same day, and we don't make any money off the episode. we will plug our favorite charities.
Indeed.
We're each going to pick a charity, and we will put a link to their donation pages in the description. We won't make anything off of that episode. We don't make anything off the other episodes anyways. So look for that in March. That'll be a charity episode, and we'll make sure that it is a great episode for charity. Because rock and roll.
Because rock and roll.
Because rock and roll.
That's right.
So, I'm Steve.
I'm Tori.
This has been What You Didn't Know.
British Invasion Edition.
That's right.
Kinda.
The kickoff.
The kickoff, yeah.
This has been a High Life Media production in accordance with Dragon Inn Studios. Thank you for listening.